Zadie Bees proudly presents the Faith, Fashion, and the Hustle podcast, hosted by the founder of Zadie Bees, Sonya Bryant.
Well, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. This is the Faith, Fashion, and the Hustle podcast. And I am excited today because I have a really extra special guest with me today. Happens to be my husband, Pastor W.G. Bryant. He was raised being called Greg, but in his older years, he goes by W.G. I am super excited. This is going to be a fun podcast. And our son, Joshua, when he was young, testified one time and said, "Hold on, folks, buckle down. It's going to be a long one. This one might be a long one." So I'm super excited to have him today. I want to share him with the Zadie Bees followers and all of those that are listening. I want to share my husband with you. We have so much to talk about. Tuesday, a week ago, he was teaching a Bible study at our church. And the Bible study was really, really good. He's a fantastic preacher and Bible study teacher. And he taught a lesson about God has a plan. And he also talked about he and I's relationship and where it all started. And we're just going to take this slow and easy and we're going to get started. But before I start talking with him, I want to say this about him. This is the man behind the scenes that has walked beside me we've been married 41 years and actually 41 and a half. And he's walked beside me through this journey. And we've had a long marriage, which, everybody doesn't last that long. But I want to ask him lots of questions. We're going to talk about a lot of things that have happened to us over the years. And I want to encourage you to listen along because we got a lot of territory to cover, don't we, babe? So I'm going to start by asking him some questions, but this is our story. And when he taught this, God has a plan, he talked about our story. And I was like, yes, let's do that on the podcast. So super excited about him coming to the podcast today. I want to introduce him again. But today, this is the man that stood beside me all these years and taught me so much about life and faith and all the things. And all right, we're going to get started. Babe, where did when you were teaching that night, you started talking about our story, and I'm going to ask you a few questions. God had a plan for our life. He had so many things in store for us. And if we could go back and write our whole love story, our story, there's so many things that we could talk about. But today I want to kind of talk about where it all began and how things progressed in our life. And God had a plan. Little did I know that on June 18th, 1994, that our journey would continue like it has. And it's gone for many, many years that I've already said. But I'm gonna let him kind of. What?
It was June 8th.
Did I say June? What did I say?
18th.
June 18th. I'm sorry. That's Joshua's birthday. June 8th, 1984. Thank you for fixing that. And I tease him because he's very much a grammar Nazi. Right, babe? Grammar Nazi. And how many times over the years I've told you I didn't marry an English professor? Many times. Okay. All right. So let me give you a little tiny bit of history. Mom and I decided to move. My brother-in-law pastored in Phoenix. My sister and brother-in-law were pastoring in Phoenix, and we decided to relocate. We were at Apostolic Bible Institute for several years, and we decided to move to Phoenix. Little did I know, well, my sister was telling me, "Hey, honey, sis, there's a young preacher, tall, dark, and handsome young preacher just moved to Phoenix, and I really want you to meet him." And I was like, "I'm not interested. Not interested." I just had come out of a relationship and I was not interested in a guy. But I'm going to start with the night of June the 8th. We arrived into Phoenix at 8 p.m. And that evening, several area churches were having a lock-in. Of course, the lock-ins back then were from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. I don't think I lasted till 6 a.m. But anyway, my sister's like, Sonya, you've got to meet this guy. He's so handsome. He's tall, dark, and handsome, and you got to meet him. So she and I got in the car and we drove up to the racquetball court. My mom was at the house with my nieces, and we walked in, and she said, "Okay, look, he's over here in the racquetball court with my husband Ron, and there were several other preachers, and he was in the racquetball court." And I'm like, I can't see him. I don't can't see him. She says, well, let's go up the staircase. Let's go up there and we can look over the balcony. And so we did. And then I'm going to let you pick up the story from there because this is where it all began.
So I was on the racquetball court. My partner in the doubles was Ron McDuff. And we were playing against Ray Brown and Ron Garrett.
Yep.
Ray Brown, the pastor where I was assistant, and Ron Garrett was my wife's brother-in-law, is my wife's brother-in-law.
He still is. Yep.
And I was about to serve, and I looked up, and there was somebody peering over the balcony looking right at me. We locked eyes, and when we did, she quickly backed out from the balcony so that I couldn't see her anymore. And so we went ahead and finished the game. But I thought, I want to see who that is. So at some point, we were sitting in an area.
Oh, wait. We're jumping ahead. Right after that, shortly after that, my friend and I, Kim, we came out of there, and in the meantime, you had gone and changed to the volleyball court, which I didn't know that. But we came down to the volleyball court, and she and I stepped into the court, and that was before the part you were fixing to tell.
And so when she stepped in, and I realized who it was the girl looking over the balcony, I said, "Hey, come over here. You're on." And I directed her to come and be right next to me.
He did like this. He points at me, does like this, and goes, "Come right here. Stand right here." I was like, whoa.
And so we played a game or two, and I nicknamed her Slugger because of the way that she hit the ball. And so the evening progressed, and we really still had not formally met. So there was a group of young people from my brother-in-law's church, including her best friend or her friend, and a guy at the church there that she had either dated or he had been interested in her. And so I just came in and sat down and joined in the discussion. He was post-trib rapture.
We were talking.
Always been raised pre-trib. And so we discussed that back and forth. And I just stopped in the middle and I said, "I don't think we've met." I said, "My name is Greg Bryant, and what is yours?" And she told me it was Sonya Hodges, and her friend was Kim
Vincent.
Mm-hmm. And the other young man was Steve Bafford.
Yeah.
And so we talked for a little while, and she disappeared. I think she had to go home because she'd been driving.
We've been driving. We've drove from Minnesota. It took us a couple of days to get there. And
I had dated a girl from Brother Brown's church 2 or 3 times, and it wasn't serious, but we had dated. And so that night I got home probably actually the next morning about 6:30 or 7. And I lived in the church in the basement.
Oh, but this part you're fixing to tell, I think, is this the part that was after we met on Sunday night?
That was, no,
No,
this was
no.
before Sunday. This was Saturday
Oh, okay.
after the
Oh,
lock-in.
after the lock-in. Okay, gotcha.
So when I got up the next day, I thought, how am I going to make contact with this girl? So I called her brother-in-law, who was her pastor. I didn't know at the time that this was his sister-in-law. So I called him up and I said, Brother Garrett, I really appreciate you hosting the lock-in last night. We had a great time. And he said, well, you're welcome. I said, in fact, um, met some people, some new people. And he said, was one of them my sister-in-law? I said, I don't know. What's her name?
Yeah, he walked by me as I came out of the volleyball court because apparently he'd seen you and I standing next to each other, and he said, "Oh, tall, dark, and handsome, huh?" And I'm like, I turned and looked at him like, "What?"
So he said, yeah, that's my sister-in-law. I said, oh, okay. I said, is there any way I can get her phone number? And he said, well, they just moved to town yesterday and they don't have a phone, but her and my mother-in-law will be at my house Sunday night after church if you want to call my house. And I said, sure.
And that was before the day of cell phones. There were only landlines at that point. We didn't have cell phones back
It
then.
was in June of 1984.
Hmm.
So the next day was Sunday. We had church Sunday morning, Sunday night. After church, I normally went with the church to eat pizza, and the girl that I had dated, and they were all kind of shocked that I didn't want to go anywhere that night. I said, I'm going to stay here at the church. So I waited till an appropriate time and I called. Now, how much of this do you want me to tell?
Well, we might need to be a little circumspect. Well,
So
yeah, we need to skip that one part probably. I bet. You
I
leaving the
called,
church?
I
Yeah.
called, and uh, Brother Garrett answered. That's what I knew him as then.
Mm.
We, I said, hey, this Greg Bryant, I was just calling. You told me to give you a call that your sister-in-law may be there. He said, yeah, let me get her to the phone. So he called her to the phone and we began to talk a little bit. And directly, he grabbed the phone and said, hey, my mother-in-law's fixing to make some Butterfinger homemade ice cream.
Which
So
was amazing.
eat ice cream. And I said,
Mhm.
sure. Got directions, headed out the door of the church in such a hurry. Had to stop. I see you holding your finger up. You wanted to interview me. So I had to stop on the way there in the deserted area
Oh boy.
between Avondale and Glendale to take care of some
But
necessary.
it was fields and fields and fields between Glend or from Avondale to back then. This is in the 80s, so there was only just fields for miles and miles. What kind of crops were they? Just I don't remember. Just tons of stuff.
Where I stopped.
What was it? I didn't hear you.
Just desert.
Desert. Yeah.
Flat.
Anyway, so he gets to the house. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I came to the Garrett's home and met their children and who would become my future mother-in-law. And we visited, ate Butterfinger homemade ice cream, and
Amazing stuff. Yeah.
um, directly, my mother-in-law was tired. She had driven all day the day before and was ready to go home. So she wanted to get to their apartment and rest. And so I asked her if I could bring Sonya home. And she said, yeah, that's fine. So we got everything okayed
Mm.
and in my car and drove to her apartment complex. And upon arrival, realized that there was a big, huge courtyard with, I think there was a tennis court and
Yeah. Tennis court.
picnic tables.
There was
And
a gazebo. Mm-hmm.
I said, well, let's talk for a while. So we talked for a while,
A long while.
and we talked a little more and a little more and a little more. And I looked over, and the sky was turning pink.
It sure
I thought, oh my, I have stayed out all night long talking to this young lady. So we didn't want there to be a scandal, so I escorted her to her mother's front door. I went and got in my car and I drove to Avondale, which was about, at that time, about 20 minutes drive,
Mm-hmm.
and unlocked the front door of the church and went in the foyer, locked it back, and headed through the auditorium to the classroom in the back where the staircase was to where I stayed. And as I walked through the auditorium, I said, well, God, I don't know what plans you've got for me, but if it includes this girl, I'm in. And so that was how it began. And
And as they say, the rest is history.
right.
Okay, I have a question for you. What was your first impression of me? And you guys, these are candid answers, questions and answers, because we have not discussed these. So they have to be nice, babe.
Well, I thought that you were cute.
Mm-hmm.
And after all I saw when you peeked over the balcony, all I saw basically was your face and hair.
Yeah.
And then we played volleyball together and visited. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw that you were beautiful in personality and shapely.
Oh, honey. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. I didn't think we were gonna go there. Okay, let's move on. Okay. What was my first impression of you, Lord? Okay, my first impression with you of you was you, like I said, tall, dark, and handsome, very outgoing, had a really super good personality. I was like, he's pretty cute. He's pretty handsome. You're bad. Oh, okay, okay. All right. We're not supposed to talk about that part. Okay. So, time rocked on. That was in June the 8th, and we started dating.
The eighth
We started dating, and
date was probably,
about 2 weeks later,
yeah, a week or two later.
yeah, because Garrett's church and Brown's church had services on different nights. So he was the youth pastor, assistant pastor, everything in Avondale. And so Avondale had church on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Glendale church had church on Wednesdays and Fridays. So we both worked jobs, or wasn't working at the time, but I got a job really quickly after we got there. So was working in the dental field. I was a dental assistant, but so it took a couple of weeks for us to connect because of services, all of our activities. So about 2 weeks later, we went on a date, and we went to, you remember where our first date was? I know you remember because we've talked about this on numerous occasions.
Was it Bill Johnson's Big Apple?
Bob Bob Johnson's? Bill
Bill.
Johnson? Bill Johnson's Big Apple? Yep. Yep. It was. And we didn't stay out all night that night. But anyway, okay, let's move along. Oh my goodness, you embarrassed me, babe. That was was a little much. But okay. Let's see. Um and I had the question, I said, what attracted you besides looks? Okay. And I didn't say that. Well, what was okay? let's move along. Let's progress. We actually got engaged. I think you proposed to me on August the 5th under the gazebo at the apartment complex. We'd already actually planned out our wedding, everything before we even proposed. And we're not going to go into all the extra details, but he proposed to me on August the 5th. He's laughing. But so we set the wedding date for February, and because he was living in the church and we got to talking about it one night, and we were like, what's the holdup? If we can get the wedding put together earlier, let's just go ahead and move forward with it. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and have this happen. So we moved the wedding up to December the 7th, and
There was a lot of chatter about us and our relationship. And
yeah,
so we felt like that we would rather just go ahead and get married and deal with it that way.
yeah. So we got married. Family came out. We went to Oklahoma for Thanksgiving. I got to meet your family, and our wedding was like 2 weeks later. We're not going to go into the family thing either. It was interesting. Okay. Yeah. So we got married December 7th,
Exact
1984
6 months to the day.
that we met. Well, there was a lot of there was a lot of chatter. They were like, "Okay, you guys got married really quickly. How is this going to work? Are you guys going to last?" And our song is still the one by Shania Twain, because it kind of talks about our story. But little did we know, of course, you've heard, if you've listened to earlier podcasts, I just as adamant about not marrying a preacher. But this guy walked into my life, and God had another plan. He had a completely different plan for my life, and that included this tall, dark, and handsome guy that been married to for 41 years. But honey, I want to tell you something. I touched on this in the beginning. You've been you've been my pastor for the last 38 years, and I don't want to tear up, but taught me a lot about life and a lot about faithfulness, about integrity, and I owe a lot to you. I know I came from a family that are worriers, and my mom was a big worrier. And one of the biggest things you taught me was, can you change the situation? Can you change the outcome of a situation? And my answer would be no. And you're like, then quit worrying about something you can't change. And that's one of the biggest things that you've taught me, aside from just walking the walk and talking the talk. And um, but God knew what He was doing when He put you in my life. But in terms of building a marriage, what would you say was? Can you think of a moment that was our happiest moment in our marriage? Can you think of something that we could share?
I don't think there's ever really a happiest moment in anybody's relationship. I think rather there are many happy moments.
Agreed. I agree.
Many of them are so comparable in the joy that they give us and remains with us. It's just too easy to try to tie yourself into one moment, because as soon as you say, well, this was our happiest moment, then along comes somebody and says, well, I remember when this happened and you guys were so happy. And
Yeah.
so, we've had so far, we have had um, about 10 happiest moments. One of them was when we said I do.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one was when we said hello to our oldest son. And the next one was when we said hello to our second born, and then our baby son. And then there was a happy moment when our oldest son married and began to have children. So we've had 4 very happy moments when our grandchildren were born.
Mm-hmm.
And our youngest son married his wife, was a very happy moment. Uh, and all of those are natural things. The spiritual side of seeing these boys grow up called to the ministry and be effective in their own ministry, receive the Holy Ghost, live for God. All of those things are tied into our depth of happiness. Um, it's hard to say exactly how you could just narrow it down to one. We've had beautiful times with our
Well,
parents.
I can tell you one happy moment that I recall so distinctly. Gregory was born April the 12th, 1986. And this, of course, is before the time of cell phones. And I gave birth to him on a Saturday morning, and I was still in the hospital on Sunday. And so you stayed with me at the hospital till Sunday afternoon. Or actually, I think you went home that night and you called me to check on me. And you said, um, my face is hurting. And I said, what? And you said, my face is hurting. And I said, why is your face hurting? You said, I don't think I've ever smiled this much in my life. And we named him after you, William Gregory Bryant II. And I think that was probably one of the highlights of our life was that newborn baby in our life. And I recall seeing your face and knowing how over um we just were overjoyed with this new baby boy. And
Well, part of the story is that our pastor's wife, Sister Brown, and my wife, Sonya, had gotten pregnant at basically the same time.
well, we were about just a few weeks apart, but close. Yeah.
And both of them lost that child to a blighted ovum,
Yeah, our
which,
first
which
pregnancy. Mm-hmm.
according to the doctors, 1 in 100,000 event. And
Mm-hmm.
those two happened both in the same church, in the same circle.
Which is pretty unusual. Very
And
unusual.
then both of them shortly thereafter got pregnant again. And brother and Sister Brown had their daughter Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Gregory, I think, just a few weeks
He
before.
was 5 weeks. He was born 5 weeks after Sarah,
And,
or maybe Sarah was born 5 weeks after him. I think Sarah was born five
and
weeks.
Sarah uh, the is a wonderful lady and is the wife of Gabriel Albiar, pastor's wife now in
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. And
Yep. Yep.
those were great times.
They were. We had such fond memories. And then I want to talk a minute about, so we were in Avondale for over 5 years, and your desire, you'd been raised in a pastor's home. You've been raised in ministry. God called you to preach at 17. There's some incredible stories throughout your young years in ministry, but I did want to talk about just briefly about our track to Sierra Vista. So we were in Brother Brown's church, and you were assisting, and we went to camp meeting, and you had talked to me privately about really your desire was to pastor, and there were several years that went by, and I know you were hungering to do that and be a pastor, and things just didn't seem to things weren't working that way at that moment. Well, we went to camp meeting. Actually, I think the story was the pastor from Sierra Vista called and asked you. I think it was like on a Wednesday or Thursday, and we went to we went to camp meeting. Remember, we went to camp meeting and
Friday,
on Friday, and he had, yeah, because we had already known about the church coming up in Sierra Vista, so we went to camp meeting on Friday, and
we had no clue that he was going to resign. He called Saturday and explained that he was about to resign, and were we interested in the church?
but God spoke to me on Friday night. We're getting it mixed up.
Yes.
So we did know that something was fixing to come down. We did know because on Friday night the Lord spoke to me at camp meeting and said, um, you need to do what it takes to go to Sierra Vista. Remember that? And then he
I do.
called him back on Saturday and said, Brother
He,
Allen,
he called, and you had not told me that story yet.
yeah,
I told him I'd love to be the next pastor in Sierra Vista, but my wife doesn't want to be there. And you overheard that conversation. I
yeah,
know you got a strange look on your face. And when I hung up the phone, you said, the Lord dealt with me last night about Sierra
yeah,
Vista.
he did.
So then I called him back and said, we're definitely interested.
Yeah.
And that began our journey to Sierra Vista.
And that's where Dallas was born. We went to Sierra Vista in 89 and then we had Dallas in 91. He was born there. But anyway, so the story continues on. We pastored in Sierra Vista for over 6 years, right, babe?
Right at 6 years.
Right at 6 years. And then in 95, we got the call. And I mean, there's just so many story after story after story how God directed our path and the plan, God's plan was in play. And so we were there, and it was a military town, Fort Huachuca. Very interesting place because a lot of people in and out of that area. So the church had a lot of movement, and so we were there for it. We loved Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista was a beautiful place to live, a wonderful place to raise children. By this time, we had 3 sons. By 91, we had Dallas, and he was premature. You'd never know it now, but that was a big story too. But you got a call from the presbyter, actually, my brother-in-law. Go ahead, pick it up from there.
And so my brother-in-law and his wife, my wife's sister, had come through after starting a church in Washington. And he had been the pastor at Sierra Vista before me. So he had informed me and called and helped us in the election process. And then when they were coming through, they had been elected in Philadelphia, Mississippi at a church there. And so one of the last things they told us as they were leaving Arizona after visiting with us to go to their new pastorate, they said, we're going to find you a church by us.
They sure did. They wanted us to be in Mississippi.
To Mississippi, and several months later, they gave us a call. He called and said, look, there's a church open in Canton, and you might be interested in it. So we talked about it, and I called the presbyter. And it's a small world in Pentecost. The presbyter had been friends with my father-in-law, Jack Hodges, when Jack Hodges was youth president in Arizona, or in Mississippi, rather. And so when I asked him about the church, he gave me the news. And then I said, well, I'm interested. He said, okay. I said, put me on the list. He said, sure, you'll be number 27.
Of people to try out for the one church. And that was in August
And
of
yeah,
95.
I hung up the phone and I was laughing. And my
Yeah.
wife was so funny. I said, we're 27th on the list.
27 on the list.
So we're going to pray that if the Lord wants me to pastor that church and us to move there, that he will open the door for us to try out for the church.
Yeah. So time tracked on. This was August when the first initial contact was, and the time tracked on, and it was September, October. We didn't hear anything. In fact, I picked up the phone one day. I think it was probably by October. Called my sister. I said, "Hey, have you heard anything about the church in Canton? We've never heard anything back." And she's like, "Well, we haven't heard a peep. We don't know. Haven't heard anything." And so all of a sudden, I was like, "Well, that's kind of weird." But I had a friend, Melissa Hudson. Her dad pastored in Flint, Michigan, and she and I decided to fly with her to Michigan to go to a music conference at her dad's church there in Flint. And so I'm in Flint with her, staying with her folks for that music conference. My husband's home with the kids, with the boys. And I'm in the office before the first before the first service, I think. And I'm with So I was in the office and you called while I was in the office, and brother
Vincent.
Henson said, "Hey sis, it's your husband. He's calling for you." So I pick up the phone and you said to me, you said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No. Do I need to?" And you said, "Yes." Of course, immediately I'm thinking something's wrong. You're at home with the boys and something's going wrong. And you said, "Sit down." I said, "Okay." So I sat down and you said, "I got a phone call from Brother Adcock, and they want us to come next weekend to try out for the church in Canton." And I was like, "Oh." And you said, "So what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I guess we're going to Canton because that's how we prayed, Lord. If you want us to go to Canton, they'll call us. If they don't, we won't ever try out." So the Lord answered that prayer. Of course, there was a lot of crazy things that happened. And you were working part-time at the golf course. You were working at Safeway, pastoring the church in Sierra Vista, and then working part-time at the golf course. And there was a little incident before we flew home. We flew to Tulsa on a Friday, I believe, wasn't it? Friday. And we drove your parents' car to Canton. We stayed for the weekend and drove back Monday to Tulsa, and we get home. But tell us about what happened on the golf course, because this plays a huge role in how the Lord kept us through many, many situations that we encountered after we moved to Mississippi. But tell us about the golf course experience.
I had actually moved my employment full time to
Oh,
the
yeah.
course, and
I forgot about that.
I was the chemical sprayer for the whole golf course, and we closed for the golf course, and they had me spraying Johnson grass with Roundup. So I was over by myself, nobody within 50 yards besides back of a house, and I was just spraying, and the Lord began to speak to me. My spirit, just very solid, strong presence. You're going to Sierra Vista, or to
Canton.
you're going to be the next pastor down there. I'm going to take care of everything. And as soon as those words came through, uh, I just began to speak in other tongues. The Holy Ghost dropped down from heaven, from the top of my head, the sole of my feet. And so I knew then that it was going to happen. And so I wanted to talk to my pastor, who was my dad. So that's why we flew to Tulsa, borrowed a car from them, and I could talk to him. We talked before I left. We went down and tried out for the church, preached Sunday morning, Sunday night, and came back on Monday and sat down with my dad and talked about what had happened and what he thought. I believe it's vitally important that you keep your man of God involved in your life.
Yeah.
So he, wisest man I've ever known, greatest pastor I've ever known. And so he counseled me several things that were helpful. And that Wednesday night, I believe it was, they actually voted us in.
Yeah.
And within less than a month,
Less than 2 weeks, I believe. It was pretty much.
moved 1,500 miles to become the new pastor in Canton, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. That was in 1995, and we won't go off into all the stuff that happened after we got to Canton, but fast forward, we're going to transition a little bit here. Fast forward many years. Well, it wasn't really that many years. 1998, things started shifting, and a lot of things had gone on between the time we arrived on scene of November 30th of 95, and a lot of things changed. And You and I got jobs. We were working full-time jobs and trying to raise three sons, and it was a lot of work. And that's when we start to transition into Zadie B's part of life. And so, what's it like being married to a woman that loves fashion, babe? What's it?
Hey, you want us to be candid?
Oh Lord, be careful. You've already been a little candid. I'm like, hi, yi, yi. Okay, what's it like? I don't be nice.
She always looked good, was well put together, took good care of herself, tried to make me look better. I have sometimes resisted her attempts to remake me and help me do it over.
So true.
I like
So true.
you when you parted your hair in the middle. Why don't you do that? Because I like my hair like it is. I don't, so you can't tell me.
Well, what wife doesn't want to spiff up her husband?
And so uh, over time, she got into uh, went from the shopping business to uh, the selling business.
Yeah.
We'll just tagline that by saying she has not completely lost her desire to shop.
No, that will probably be when I'm 6 feet under.
Um, I have tried my best to support her at every turn. Every time she made a move in her business, I tried to stand beside her and support her. I've done things. I've helped load trailers and do road shows, and I have done payroll.
Yeah.
Currently, do payroll taxes,
Yeah.
and I tell people truthfully that my wife and I own 7 stores and a corporate offices and a website fulfillment warehouse, and I try to stay as far away from it as I can.
And that's the truth. Yeah, it's like pulling teeth monthly for him to get and come and take care of the taxes because he's like, no, no, no. But anyway, but that being said, he's being kind of modest, but you know what? He's been a huge supporter and a huge fan of mine, and I love him for his support. He's being a little like low key today. I'm like, okay, you're super low key. This is not necessarily always how he is, but I want to say something that also that he taught me, and I've heard him say many times about marriage. We've been talking about how we got together and about some of the things that we encountered, but there were times that we had struggles, and I know no one else has been there, I'm sure, but we've had struggles in our marriage, but and probably at times we didn't really care for one another. We still loved each other, but we had some.
We did have, we
we
had,
we
right,
we had what?
fights,
Yes, because we were young. And the funny thing is, we were both the babies of the family, and we both were vehemently denying that we were spoiled.
and I don't recommend 2 babies.
And we vehemently denied that we were spoiled. Now, we were spoiled in different kind of ways, but it came out in our relationship in the early days because we both wanted our way. And but I will say there were times that we loved each other, but we didn't like each other. And one of the things that you've taught me over the years is love is a choice, even when you're in the midst of battling with your spouse and you disagree with your spouse and you at the moment may not really, really like them, but love is a choice. And I think that's probably what's helped us stick together for 41 years when you say, babe, because even though when there were times that we may not liked one another because we were having vehement battles or we were, battling for the will, that we made a choice to stick together in spite of, and the one thing that really bothered me is my dad left when I was a young girl and I dated a guy when I was young and his family just was so adamant about him not marrying me. And their biggest thing was she comes from a broken family. And so when things go wrong, she's going to want to divorce you. Well, it frustrated me, but, well, And there's, you're grinning, so I know what we're going to talk about now. Is you can tell I will be mad about when we were young. You can tell it.
Whoever coined the phrase, sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me, did not know what they were talking about.
No,
Words are very, very potent weapons.
they are. They are.
My wife's experiences with her dad leaving the family had marked her pretty strongly because she was young and very impressionable. And so we would get in some pretty strong arguments, and she would say, "Well, I'll just leave. I'll just divorce you. I'll go." And so we had an epic argument. I call it nuclear argument because it's when you get all the families involved. You act like your mom, or you act like your dad, and all of that.
And
And
I
when
know nobody else has had those kind of fights, arguments.
over, we were sitting, and she had made the usual threat that she was going to divorce me. And so I just told her that night, I said, "You're going to keep saying that,
Hmm.
that you hate me and you're going to divorce me until you erode my emotions for you down to where I won't care anymore. And then it won't matter if you stay or go."
That was a wake up call for me. It was a wake up call for me because I really just kind of, because of my history with with my parents divorcing, I just thought, well, maybe this is the way out. Maybe this is not going to work. And so I used those words, but I did not realize how much they had affected you. And it was a wake up call for me. And that night when you said that to me, from that day forward, I never said that again because I didn't realize I was dealing with emotions of basically daddy leaving. So I was dealing with rejection. And so when we would argue, I would the fallback was he's rejecting me because we're disagreeing and the argument is rejection. So, but anyway, we worked that out. It was the early few years of our marriage that we went through that, but God saw fit to help us learn and very blindly work our way through these problems. But God's so amazing, and our life has been woven with troubles and trials. But I tell you what, we've stuck together, and love is choice. Love is choice.
Through the years, we would have some pretty spectacular different.
We don't want to keep talking about that.
Wife would call my dad.
Oh,
We'd both get on the phone, and dad would counsel us.
yes, he did. He was.
Then he'd very gently say, "Okay, Sonya, you can get off the phone. I just need to talk to Greg for a minute." And he would rip my hide from stem to stern, tell me what I was and wasn't going to do and how to handle it from this day forward. And for the next hour, 2 hours, or four, I would stomp around the house mad as a hornet, not saying a word. But it was my dad and it was my pastor. So I had to receive it. And it was always for the good.
Yes, yes. Well,
Of course, she never got that side of it.
your dad was pretty cool to me. But your dad really he was really kind to me. And I know that yeah, he was really good to me. And I loved your dad and we miss him terribly. We lost him in 2000 and he left a huge hole in our family. The lack of having him is to me, I feel like some of the things that we've encountered in the years after his passing would have been a lot different had the Lord had not taken him away from us. But you know what? God has a plan. We don't know what that plan is, but I, um, yeah, we've talked a lot about our marriage. Is there anything we're missing, babe? I wanted to talk to you about. I'm thinking, How was it?
I think we probably need to talk about the giving.
I did on one of my podcasts. I went over that about how you talked to me about the tithing. I did that on the very last podcast. See, guys, he's not listening. He's not been listening. He's got to get caught up. So, so you have to catch up, babe. How do we balance? Well, let me ask you this. This is one of the things. What does success mean to you right now, as far as where we are in the Zadie B's life, where we are? That's kind of a loaded question, but um, what kind of a legacy do you want to leave down to our boys, to our family? What legacy do you and I want to leave behind that? And I kind of know the answer, but I want to hear your take on it.
Well, that's several different avenues that you balled up in one.
I sure did. I did. That was
Success to me, first of all, is maintaining a walk with God, just beyond being a preacher and a pastor, a husband and a father and grandfather, son,
Mm.
which now we lost my mother in March. But beyond all of that, first and foremost, success means remaining in the kingdom and
Mhm.
life inside the kingdom, fellowship. Success in ministry means to have a consistent sense of revival at the church and to be able to be a blessing to the people that God called me to pastor. And as far as marriage and family goes, success, first of all, is staying together and enjoying life together.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people that have stayed together. They're very bitter toward one another. There's a lot of anger and hurtful things that are said and done. But to be together and love one another verbally and affectionately is a very important thing. To be able to laugh together after 42 years of dating
Mhm.
and 41 and a half years of marriage, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, uh, we were on our way home from our uh, second home in Branson yesterday, and we had several moments that were very humorous. It's really good to find the ability to still laugh at things that happen, and I'm still the English professor,
Yes. Yes.
the grammar Nazi.
Yes.
Say about that is Heil Hitler. But we we've had some grand and glorious times together.
Yeah.
Zadie Bees has been a godsend to us, to our family, to our church,
Yeah.
to us personally.
Mhm.
The things that God has done and provided through the avenue, the friends that we have made, the people that we have come in contact with, the employees that we've had and have enjoyed being with and enjoying
Mhm.
time together. Um, just has been good. The places we've been, the things that we've seen, the success that my wife has engendered by her hard work and desire, and her ability to meet people. We still have a very strong disagreement about her business because I have often volunteered my services, but she will not let me do customer service.
No.
So I really feel like that I tremendous
No.
blessing in customer service.
I told him, I said, if you did customer service, we would never have customers. They would run away.
And what makes that really funny is that some time ago, it's been
Oh.
a few years back, she was explaining to me, as pastors' wives will to their husbands, how I should handle a situation. And
Hey,
I
hey, hey, hey.
like every situation the way you advised me to, we wouldn't have it. So she feels the same way about
So we have mutual admiration society going here,
me.
right?
So we have drawn the lines pretty strongly.
We
We
found
don't
our
we
place.
have across those two areas.
You found your place and I found mine. Let's stay in our own lane, as my friend Sue Pinell says, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. So
Only.
stay in your own lane. Okay. Well, I let me ask a couple questions. These are kind of throwbacks to our beginning of our relationship. Um, no, this is actually probably more current. Who spends more money, you or me?
Yes.
It depends on what you're talking about. My husband loves
I, it's,
toys, golf carts, guns, four-wheelers, golf clubs, golf stuff. Of course, mine is not the same, but so
and Louis Vuitton.
uh yeah, yeah. Okay, now let's talk about something else.
Oh,
Let's talk about something else. Okay. All right. Who said I
that
love you
part
first? Who said I love you first?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Woo! Okay.
Because I was sitting on the platform at
Oh,
church at a special meeting.
no, is that Brother Garrett's?
You, it was at Brother Garrett's.
Yeah.
I looked at you
Let
and
me tell the story. Let me tell.
uh,
So one of my friends, it might have even been Kim, one of my friends said, "Do you know if you say olive juice, they interpret it something else?" So he was on the platform, and I said olive juice, and we had just been dating a short time. And what did you think I said, babe?
I thought you said I love you. So I took it back. But that made me the first one to say it.
I fr- what was the
So
word? Huh?
you snooze, you lose.
So anyway, that was a funny story because when you say olive juice and don't say it out loud, they think you're saying I love you. So yeah, what do they say? I
You deceived me.
I deceived you.
It's an
Okay.
Adam and Eve situation.
Who makes the other one laugh the most?
I make you laugh the most.
That's true. Very true.
Who makes the other one agitated and angry the most?
You, you, you aggravate the fire out of me. Right? Right? So you guys, if you're listening to this podcast, you know we're being extremely candid. So forgive us for our candidness, but you know what? I think that we the one thing that I know about us is we're real. We're not fake, we're not phony. What you see is what you get. So when you hear us talking about our marriage, we don't hide the fact that we've had our ups and downs and our struggles, but we have made love a choice and we've stuck together through the highs and the lows of all of these years, and makes it really strong. Something that really is important to me. And I know men are not so much about touch, it's more of a woman thing. But many, many years ago, I explained to you, if you come to bed after me, just reach over. And for how many years have you been doing that? You just lay your hand on my arm or touch me and let me know you're there. And even when we're driving home from Branson yesterday, I can't tell you how many times. And I think many times we neglect the physical touch. For a woman, physical touch is so important. And I think men don't recognize it, but it's important for them as well. And we'll be just driving along, and I reach over and touch his arm, and then a little while later, he does the same to me. But there's something about physical touch in a marriage that keeps that bond and that love going. And I encourage you, if you don't have a physical touch with your spouse and you've lost that edge, you need to continue. It's my boyfriend right there.
Reach out and touch someone.
Reach out and touch someone.
Because husbands, just remember, if you don't reach out and touch your wife physically, he will reach out and touch you verbally. because she won't like the fact that you're not touching her physically.
My husband speaking from experience. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Life has been very fun, lots of interesting moments. Um, and I am grateful, thankful for him for allowing me. A lot of men are very controlling of their wives. My husband's never been a controlling person, and he's always allowed me to be me and be who I am. And I thank him publicly for that because I don't have to worry. You know, if I had ideas and wild harebrained ideas, he would give me my opinion, but he would let me go for it. You know, he'd never really. Now, if there was something he felt like it was a foolish step, he was very much adamant and speak up and say things. But if it was out of the will of God or something like that, but in business, he's walked alongside me. I've had him as a sounding board, but I'm thankful for him.
Thank you, dear.
You're
And
welcome.
I'm thankful for you. We've
Yeah.
we've been blessed to be together,
Yeah.
to see all the things that we've seen, do all the things that we have done,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do them together,
Yeah. Yeah.
to experience life at the level that we have.
Mm-hmm. We love to travel. We don't get to travel as much as we want to. We're hoping with retirement we can travel a little more. Can you tell me what your most favorite trip that we've ever done? We love to travel and we've been some really cool places. What was your favorite trip that we did?
Alaska,
Alaska.
the boat.
Yeah. We love it.
Second favorite's probably the New England cruise.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed going overseas and the two cruises we took over there, but Europe is just so stuffy.
It's stuffy. England was stuffy. It was gorgeous and beautiful, but it was interesting because the people there aren't that friendly. They're not very friendly. But I agree. I loved Alaska. I loved Hawaii, but my favorite trip of all, even including probably even Europe, and Europe was amazing. But I really, really enjoyed the Canadian trip, the trip to Canada, up to
That
Quebec
trip
City.
to Hawaii with your sister and brother-in-law, the islands, that was really enjoyable.
It
That
was.
was a neat getaway.
It was. And it was really cool because you could see the islands of Hawaii in no other way, really, unless you take an airplane. There's really not.
We've been just incredibly blessed with friends and
Mhm.
loved ones. We last July 4th, we were able to invite uh, the Schweitzers, Pastor Danny Schweitzer's wife Janice, to our condo in Branson, along with their son Jeremy, his wife Christy, and their daughter Ashlyn, who just recently sang a phenomenal solo at Peak.
Mhm. She did.
And, had a great time together, and actually uh, had so much fun that now they're our near neighbors. And
Yeah,
we
they bought a condo in the same neighborhood as us, which is pretty cool.
so we thoroughly enjoy being with them. Uh,
Mhm.
just went to Antioch at the invitation of my nephew, Austin Garrett. Had a great time there visiting with my wife's sister, Rhonda Garrett, and her husband. Uh, I guess they're calling him Bishop Ron Garrett now. And we
Mhm.
had seeing old friends from our years in Arizona. Um, and it seems like we did another, in between Christmas and New Year's last year, we went to Las Vegas when my wife was checking out whether or not she wanted to open a store, and spent great time with her niece, Jeremy, and her husband, Pastor J.D. Stoltzfus.
Let me
And
read something. We're getting to the end of this thing, but I want to read something. Yes, we've had some wonderful travels, and wonderful memories. But I want to read something I wrote down. Marriage isn't about finding perfect people, it's about two imperfect people choosing each other every day and allowing God to write the story. Thank you for joining us today in the Faith Fashion Hustle. Our conversation have been very candid and open about our marriage and things that we've done, things we've seen. God's been woven like a tapestry, ribbons through a tapestry throughout our life, and I'm thankful and grateful for my husband, my pastor, the one that's been my fan who's cheered me on through all these years of business, 28 years in Zadie Bees and counting, and not stopping now. It's going to keep continuing on, hopefully, if the Lord has his way. But I want to thank my husband, and I want to thank my Zadie Bees team for all that you've done to make this company extra special. But is there anything you want to add at the end, babe? I kind of tried to sum it up. Okay, go for it.
I'm certainly grateful for the times that you and I have had in our relationship. My pastor and his wife have sitting inside their front door. As you walk out the front door, you can't miss it. It's right there by the door. A placard that says, "There is always, always, always something to be thankful for."
Mm-hmm.
Somebody bought me one of those because I've talked about it so often, and it's hanging in my office. And I just want to remind you, if you're trying to do something, if you fail, if you're trying to live for God and you're struggling, if you have moments of indecision, just remember that there is always, always, always something to be thankful for.
Yes. And I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for all the things that we've discussed today. I love you, babe, and thank you for joining me today for the Faith, Fashion, and the Hustle. And you say, where does that come from? Well, we talked about it.
I love you.
I love
Hustling off of here.
I love you, babe. Thank
Love
you. Bye.